It's not the same day. What I found was that when I was trying to play my keyboard part over that drum part, I'm well enough rehearsed on the keyboard part, but I'm imagining kind of a different series of speed changes and everything to what's in the drum part, and the drum part has some imperfections, so I've needed a little bit of rehearsal time. That's Rhodes MK-80. In its day, quite an expensive stage piano. It weighs a ton. Anyway, I would normally play that through PV Renown 400, but needs a bit of a service. I'll probably do it myself at some point, maybe some bad caps, maybe just need to put some deoxit gold or something through the pots, but it's crackling intermittently. And also I'm kind of keen to show people that you can make decent sounding recordings on a 4-track with cheap pedals. So what I've got instead is this is running into this AC Tone, this very inexpensive pedal by Joyo that's meant to sound like a Vox AC30. You can see that the gain's right down. It's really just fattening up the sound of it. If I just turn this off, here's what the keys sound like on their own. It's got onboard chorus on there. There's a little bit of EQ on here as well. And I put that on, it's just a bit more fat and saturated. And then I've got a Fender style spring reverb. It's built into this Zoom multistomp. I think that maybe cost me £20 second hand. That cost maybe £50 second hand, so they're not expensive devices. And one cable is coming into channel 2 of the 244. The other cable is going directly to this Marshall power amp, and I'm just monitoring it through this Mat amp 4x12. And then the tape out, so it's really just that drum bounce of a tape Q1. It's coming out via a pair of RCA cables, and I'm monitoring them through these bottom of the line Mackie monitors. I think they're about £80 for a pair. It's what I normally use for monitoring this MPC Live. But this just means that I can hear it in the room when I'm recording takes, so I can put together something like a music video, of my different performances when I upload the finished article to the internet. There's no need to monitor it through these amplifiers. If I weren't doing that, I could just listen to both signals through headphones. In Q mode, I would get my blend between the drums by turning this up, and this would be the level of me monitoring via input 2. And you can see for recording purposes, I've got it set to sync mode. The option between tracks 1 and 3 is in safe mode, but for the option between tracks 2 and 4, set to track 2. So what that means is I'll be overwriting the material on track 2 of the tape via channel 2 of the mixer, and the output of track 1 of the tape is coming straight from tape to this output here. Right, I'll do some takes. On to guitar takes. So channel 3, got the input switch of the mixer channel 3 set to mic/line. Got set for unity gain. I'll make any adjustments as I go between this control and this control, so that the signal is gonna not go too far above 0. We can see that we're in sync mode. Right bus 2/4 set to safe, but the left bus is set to 3. Channel 3 of the mixer is panned hard left. If I turned it all the way to the right, no signal would get through to tape. If I turned it there, then the signal that reached this gain pot here would be cut in half. In sync mode, anything that in the left bus shows up on meter 1, that's why this one is lit. For monitoring, I'm sending what So on track 1, that's the drum bounce, and what's on track 2, that's the keyboard take via the Q outs. That's these two sockets here. Again, that's going into my inexpensive Mackie mixers that I usually use with my MPC Live. The guitar is coming into input 3 in the back from one of the two outputs of this is a multistomp, the other of which is going to just this Marshall power amp. You can't see the sockets in the back there, and so I'm monitoring that in the room via this 4x12 cabinet. Here's the guitar, Electrical Guitar Company standard with P90 style pickups, all aluminium construction. So the sound is being produced by this array of pedals. This is on intermittently, it's a George Lynch Morley Wah. The Boss Digital Delay DD3, I'm using that for a stutter effect. This is only on intermittently, it's a Ferocious knob yawn. This knob here controls what blend of analog and digital octave it produces. So I've got that turned all the way to analog, meaning that this effectively becomes a blend control. So you can see I've got about 50-50 octave, no octave. It just adds a kind of texture to it that I like for some sections. You can hear it more in the bends with it off. This feedbacker booster by Boss, I'm using that both to get feedback in some sections without having very high volume in the room. But I also use it as my main distortion pedal. It's got a kind of halfway between a Roger Mayer treble booster and a Dallas Rangemaster sort of effect. It sounds better slightly driving this amp simulation pedal than this one does with the gain turned higher, if you get me. There's the American sound. With the booster, slightly sharper, more distorted. This multistomp has, remind myself what it's actually called, bottom B. I mean, really it's a sonic maximizer. I've got that on and a noise gate. This Boss Super Octave I'm turning on for some sections. It adds a octave below, but only for the lowest notes. So you can do chords in it and it sounds like you've got a bassist playing along with you. Out of those two notes, this one octave below it, this one doesn't, because you can set the cut-off point. And then the main amp tone is coming from this Joyo American sound. It's, meant to sound like Fender amps, Bassman sort of thing. I mean, if I turn these off altogether, it's just the sound of the guitar going into the power amp. And then I'll need to set that up again, but I'm just putting some spring reverb on there. With the reverb, supposed to start going for some ticks, I guess. I've completed the guitar takes now, and you heard me, that's takes plural. What happened was, been practicing this without the pedal changes, so there was a couple of those transitions that were kind of screwing with me during the takes, and I ended up doing a lot more than I was expecting to. I tracked to channel 3, it was only semi-happy with the take, but didn't want to destroy what I had, so I moved to channel 4, so I would have had the controls like this. Mic line, sync, channel 4 panned hard right, bus right set to track 4, bus left set to safe. Did that, got a take I was much happier with, realised I recorded it a bit hot, but with that in the bank I went back to track 3 and overwrote the mediocre take that I had there and got something that I liked just as much. And what I've been experimenting with during playback now is, for certain sections, I'm bringing the hotter guitar take on track 4 up. It's harder to the right, but it's quieter, and you get this sort of sensation, if your perspective's here, then you've got these two guitars coming at you from either side of the stereo image, so it just sort of thickens things up. What you're hearing at the moment is the sound coming from the line out into very inexpensive Alesis monitors, and it's not a great microphone built into the smartphone, so just bear that in mind as you listen back at this stage. Quite often what you would do if you were double tracking an instrument is listen to the original take as you recorded. Both of these were recorded just me listening to the keyboard and the drums, so there's a little bit of out of syncness to it that I quite like. You know, it sounds like the virtual band has two guitarists that are playing the same part. Obviously that means I don't have a track free for vocals. It would involve me mixing down all 4 tracks of this using another multi-tracker to 2 tracks, but I'm thinking I will do that, not just for the sake of the song, but also to demonstrate that process of using 2 multi-trackers, that form of a ping-pong recording where you're going from 4 tracks to 2 rather than from 3 tracks to 1 internally. I'm in remix mode, so everything's set to tape, everything's set to safe. VUs are showing the level from tape of the 4 tape tracks. Let's quickly talk about EQ here. Get this back to a point where we can hear it. With the drum kit, this EQ here is just taming the hi-hats a little bit. They're a little bit strident, and this is taking out some boominess. Or if I put that back flat, you hear how the hi-hat is now? And obviously by turning that down to there, I mean, I'm taking away some nice things about the snare and so on as well, but I think it's a better compromise. And then if I take that away, see, that's taking some of that rumble from the kit away. Keys. There, I'm emphasising the low end a bit, and then this. Just a bite of the right hand. Both the guitars, that's like the power. So I'm just turning that up slightly, the low mid compared to this. That's normal, flat, I mean. And then just got a lot more by turning it up a little bit. Pan-wise, you can see that because the drums and the keys are kind of full range-ish, I mean, the electric piano less so than it would be if it's an acoustic piano, but I don't want them sitting in exactly the same part of the stereo image, so I've got keys significantly right of centre to be on the opposite side of the stereo image from the main guitar, and the drums just a little bit left of centre. And then the main guitar is even further to the left than the keyboard is to the right, and then the double tracked guitar, it's not quite hard right, but it's way over. Got a Japanese 464 that's got a harmonic maximizer built into the master bus, and it's got a high shelving EQ, and I think that the drums in particular would benefit from that. I mean, they're not terrible sounding, but there's a little bit of sparkle missing from the cymbals that I could probably bring back during that bounce down procedure. I'll go and get the other multi-tracker set up, and I'll bounce down in such a way that we bake all 4 of these tracks into one stereo pair, and I've still got 2 tracks of cassette left over to dub over a main vocal and a harmony vocal.